Let's begin our journey. So these are quotations. The first one is from last week's parsha, and that's the top part of the page. And the second from this week's parsha. So let's see where we're going. Now I've underlined the relevant psukim that we're looking at before we even begin. So everybody's aware that Moshe Rabbeinu reluctantly accepts the role of leadership. In fact, amazingly, he argues with God for an entire week. Imagine that. He's an entire week. He's arguing with God. He's not worthy. Aaron is more worthy. Why send me? Yeah, get close to the door. Shkoyach. He says to Hashem, why send me? I'm not going to finish the job. Send someone that will lead them to the final redemption. All kinds of resistance. So just to point out to you, I think we said this, I don't remember if I did, you forgive me, that this is the hallmark of true leadership, which is the opposite of leadership out there in the world where you're vying for the position, you are politicking for it, you are promoting and campaigning. From the Torah perspective, that's the last person you want to, as a leader. It's the one who doesn't want to be. Exact opposite. Because leadership is not a power trip, which is what they're after. Leadership is the opposite. It means a selfless life devoted totally to others, which is why there's a natural resistance. Not because the leader is selfish, but it's primarily what's going to be with my own. I got to work on myself. I've got so much that I still need to grow. That's my obligation, is it not? Each person has to develop and grow and connect. And if he's going to become a community servant, then what becomes of him? So there's that resistance. But also there's like, surely others are more worthy. That's the primary objection. Surely there are others more worthy. Now, I think I pointed out, this is Jonathan Sacks, a very beautiful, a blessed memory. God bless his soul. Continues to have great impact on the Jewish world. His writings and talks, etc. So Jonathan Sacks points out the following. What is the model for leadership in the world? The pyramid. Whether it's a government, whether it's business, it's a pyramid model. And it all starts in Egypt. So what's a pyramid? Right? It reaches an apex at the top. Who's at the top? The CEO, the president, whatever. And everybody, the whole company is all there in order to yield profit at the top. Now, obviously, if you're working for them, so everybody gets their cut along the way. And the higher you are, the higher the cut. But it's all, what's the model of Jewish leadership? The menorah. Now, the menorah was actually straight branches. And if you look at the menorah, it's a pyramid, a triangle, but where the bottom is a point and the branch is out like this. So the Jewish leader's at the bottom. Where's the point? Like the point at the bottom, that's the leader. Where is he? Not there, but here. He's here to serve the branches. And the branches of the menorah are 7, and it's all beaten out of one solid piece of gold. The 7 branches represent the 7 personality types amongst the Jewish people. 7 times that you wind the tefillin on your arm correspond to the 7 emotions. Each one of us has all 7, but we differ in our personalities and which attributes dominate, and in the endless proportion of how they mix, both in quantity and quality. So there's endless, no 2 people are the same, but overall it's the same basic building blocks. But the point being that the leader is at the base, and he's here to serve. And what's he to serve? To light up. That each individual soul light up, and each person illuminate, and each person contribute their indispensable role for the purpose of creation for them, and so on. So it's the opposite. He lies at the bottom. So Moshe Rabbeinu resists. So let's read what happens. Top of the page, the underlined parts we'll read. And Moshe said to the Lord, okay, to God, I am not an eloquent man, neither yesterday nor the day before, nor since thou hast spoken to thy servant, but I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. Now look at the next underline. God says, I will be with your mouth and teach you. This translation is really archaic. And I will teach you what you shall say. Next underline, and Aaron will be your spokesman. The and he, 16, is Aaron. If you look at the in between, you see, you're saying Aaron, he'll have his role too, but you're the leader. He shall be your spokesman to the people, and he shall be for you as a mouth, and you'll represent me, and the mission will be accomplished. Just by the way. So what a summary here is, Moshe argues, he says Aaron is one of his arguments is Aaron's more worthy. God says, and I can't speak. His big argument is I can't even speak. Who gives the power to speech? I do, says God. I will be with your mouth, and furthermore, Aaron will be your spokesman. End of discussion. Done. Now, by the way, you all know on a physical level why Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak. Why he was, as he says here, slow of tongue in Hebrew. Kvad peh means literally heavy mouth. Kvad lashon, heavy tongue. You know the story. The story was, very briefly, I think I once told you, this Bekitzer, very brief. He was, of course, brought up in the king's palace because Batya had saved him. Batya, the Pharaoh's daughter, Batya, daughter of God. Basya. Now, one day, it's all a big secret that he's Jewish. Now, one day, he's sitting on the king's lap, and he takes his throne, his crown, and puts it on his head. Everybody, and he's an infant. Is this a sign of they all knew he was adopted, somehow rebellion, usurping the throne. So the king decides to put him to the test. Was this intelligently driven or just the playful antics of a child? So they put before him, in front of him, money, coins, and glowing coals. Now, if he goes for the coins, it means he's a Jewish kid. He's going for this. He understands what he's doing. If he goes for the coals, then it's brighter and so on. So taking the crown was just a playful, unintended, no significance to it. So our sages tell us that he was going to go to take the coins, and the angel pushed his hand, unbeknownst to anybody else, and he takes the coal. It's burning. So he puts it to his mouth to extinguish it, and that's where he deformed his lips and his tongue. Now, just by the way, I told you this word from one of the great Rebbes of Ger. So why did this happen? Little child. So he says, what happened, the story. So the mother puts him in the Nile River, and Basi finds him, and she takes him, but he refuses to nurse from an Egyptian mother. And so she ends up, through Miriam was watching the whole scene, Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, he ends up being united with his mother, and his mother nurses him. Says the Rebbe of Ger. Ger is one of the great Hasidic dynasties in Poland. But what happened was, the non-kosher milk, when she tried to nurse him, touched his mouth, his tongue. He wouldn't take it in, but it touched him. And he wanted to purge himself of it. When a vessel absorbs non-kosher, you have to put it in fire or in boiling water, depending, to extract the offending, the non-kosher absorbed material. And that's why he wasn't like the angel. He really wanted this to, whatever, it's a very deep, incredible insight. But the net result is he's what? He can't speak. So now, that's last week's parsha. Now look at the next quote. And the Eternal spoke to Moshe, saying, I, the Eternal, tell Parai, king of Mitzrayim, all that I'm now telling you. Moshe said before the Eternal, I have a speech impediment. In Hebrew, ani aral svasayim. So how will Pharaoh listen to me? God says, you shall do everything that I command you to say, and Aaron, your brother, shall repeat it to Pharaoh, so that he shall release the children of Israel from his land. Our question is, why is he giving this argument again? He did already in last week's parsha, and God answered him. Said again the same thing. Same thing. I can't speak. And God says, Aaron's with you, he'll speak. He'll repeat it to Pharaoh. Simple question, friends. You got it? Yeah? The explanation, the answer is this. It's a new argument. Look very carefully. First, he said, I'm slow to speech and slow of tongue, which means he can speak, but with difficulty. But now he uses in Hebrew, the English doesn't convey it, speech impediment. Aral Svasim, oral, you know what an oral is? An oral is a person who doesn't have a circumcision. It means closed. Oral means closed. Closed. What does circumcision do? It removes the barrier and reveals the organ. So the word oral means closed. Now he's saying to Hashem, not only I can't speak, with difficulty, heavy, slow, that was last week. Now he's saying, I can't speak at all. I can't speak at all. And so that's a whole new argument. So God says to him, everything I command you to say, Aaron, your brother, shall repeat it to Pharaoh. Now let's see what Rashi says there. Below the page is Rashi, you can see in small print there, Rashi's commentary on this verse. You shall say each separate message once. Listen to the instruction. Your mouth is closed. Pharaoh doesn't understand the word you're saying. But in his presence, you say it once, as you've heard it from my mouth. I'm going to speak to you, first of all, obviously, what? In Hebrew. And you're going to say it that way. Pharaoh will not understand. It's not the language, not what you're saying either, because he's completely now like closed. And then Aaron, your brother, shall express it eloquently and explain it so that Pharaoh will understand. Now, let's just zero in on Rashi's commentary. That's very wordy. Each separate message once, why would I think you should say it twice? The whole commentary is, I mean, there's not even a need for any commentary here. And Rashi says, each separate message, called shlichus or shlichus, every mission in the Hebrew, as you heard it from my mouth. Well, of course, he's repeating what God says. Why is Rashi emphasizing that God's saying is you heard it from me? The whole commentary of Rashi could have been said in 2 words. You say, and Aaron will explain. Finished. Of course. Why does he say it once, and every shlichus say you heard it from my mouth, and then Aaron will explain it. So here's the answer to all of the above. Here's the deeper meaning, friends, to Moshe Rabbeinu's inability to communicate and speak, and why it gets progressively worse. Slow to speak, and now it can't speak at all. To draw a parallel from davening, which we're all about to do. Friends, prayer has rungs. Jacob's ladder has 4 rungs that he has. This image is the famous dream. It has many meanings, including the 4 rungs of prayer. So it begins with verses of praise, Psukkah de Zimra, that's rung 1. The rest is prefatory. Before that, it's prefatory. Verses of praise, then the blessings of the Shema, then the Shema, and the 4th rung is the Amidah. It's the highest level. How does a Jew say the Amidah? Standing in an undertone. Why? Because 4 rungs in the presence of the king, the closer you get, the more subdued, the more humble, the more nullified. So much so that the Amidah begins with these words, Adonai, my Lord, Svasai Tiftach, open my lips, Ufi agid tilasecha, and I will relate your praises because I can't do it. In silence. You have to empower me to say your praises. It's very similar to what's happening here. Why at the Amidah? Because if we daven as we should, and our appreciation, our connection to God deepens and deepens, it's like going into chamber, inner, and finally alone with the king, can't speak. Now, just by the way, so a little in parenthesis, so Shemoneh Esrei is the Amidah, which is why it's standing, head slightly bowed in an undertone, and we can't even talk. You have to open my mouth. Look at what we say there. I need this. I need forgiveness. I need help. You can't talk, and all of a sudden you've got a whole shopping list of requests. How does the two jive? The answer is that list of requests is because that's what you want. You want me to have parnasa. You want the sick should be healed. You want that I should be cleansed and forgiven. And all the things that we ask is ultimately that's God's desire. You want a home in this world? This world's got to be fixed, starting with my life, because you want a relationship with me. So that explains this dichotomy. On the one hand, I need, but you start off with, I can't even speak in the king's presence. It's all you. So all of a sudden you need, because what I need is what you want. Now, having said that, that's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is now being appointed by God, and as time progresses, he becomes less capable of speaking, less expressive of self, and more nullified. Because he feels he's in a constant state, if you like, of the Amidah, the constant state of standing in the presence of God. So that is a whole new appreciation of his inability to speak. Speak means tell you something. He's not there. He's nullified. So now the question, my friends, is, okay, you can speak. So Aaron will, so why does he have to go to Pharaoh anyway? Why does he have to go to Pharaoh? Let Aaron go. Here's the bottom line, friends. This is what Rashi is explaining. Let's look at the last comment again. You should say each message once, just as you heard it from my mouth. Because you being there in front of Pharaoh, even though he doesn't understand really what you're saying, and because you can't communicate, but because of your humility, you bring me to Pharaoh. You're my shliach. That's what Rashi emphasizes. Kol shlichus, you represent me because of your complete humility. Because you're your egoless Moshe Rabbeinu. Therefore, you are the pure vessel to express me. And that's what's going to crush Paro. That's what he's got to sense. That's what he has to feel. And you'll say it only once. Why the emphasis on once? Because it's not about explaining, it's just about bringing the sense of godliness. And you'll say it, as you heard it from me in Hebrew, she doesn't even understand. But he'll sit there and see you, and in you he's going to see my presence radiate. And you'll say, just as you heard it from me, says Hashem. Because the message that Pharaoh needs to hear is not simply, if you don't let them go, you're going to get plague 1, 2. That's all external. The main message is Pharaoh has to know that there's a God in the world. And that there's a purpose. And who conveys there's a God in the world? Moshe Rabbeinu at this level of total humility. So Pharaoh is just in awe of him, not understanding a word he says. He's the pure, nullified, humble vehicle to express Hashem. And that's what Rashi is emphasizing here. My shliach, you'll say it as you heard it from me. And you're just going to say it once. Because this is not a question of words and explain it in detail. Aaron will do that. He'll explain this. So what's going to happen? Aaron will explain. Now, what's the takeaway message from us, friends? Many. But number one is this. You want to be an effective communicator. And you're communicating something that's like instructions that people need to do and not so easy. So here's the thing. If they feel, the other person, whether it's your wife, children, or workers, whatever, that it's about you personally, there's resistance. You can give the best explanations, but they sense it's all your ego trip. So they'll do it. They won't do it half-heartedly. But if we really want to get the message across, then they have to feel this is for them. This is for your benefit. It's got to be sincere. It's got to be sincere. They've got to get the message for them personally, not just the information. And that will happen to the degree that it's not about me and to the degree that our ego is put aside. You might have the most convincing argument, but it's about you winning the argument. All you do is the other person gets their back up even more and will just continue resisting. But if it's about me, not about me winning the argument, it's about you getting this message of truth, godliness, truth, then the listener will receive it because I'm not in the way. And you can't act this. You cannot act this. It's got to be sincere. It's got to be sincere humility. And especially, again, in family, spouse, children, and people that we're close to. If you want our words to be heeded, the child, the spouse has to really feel this isn't about you winning, getting the last word. It's really what's the benefit and objectively for the child. So I'm going to conclude with a simple example how you see this in everyday life. You go out to the restaurant with your kids, and the kids are rambunctious and they're playing up, and you get very upset with them. You know, quiet. What's going on over here? You mean the kid? No, you're just embarrassed because they're in front of other people and you look bad. So your disciplinary, if that's what it is, will not be effective. Unless you're going to beat them into submission later and they're afraid of you. Because the kid's not feeling that you don't mean me, behave. It's because I'm embarrassing you. So if that's why I have to behave. But if the child feels then and any time, it's just a model that my instructions, etc., is not because you're embarrassing me and what kind of kid do I have, and it's because this is what you need to do and this is for your good. It's a whole different communication. That's the Moshe Rabbeinu property, and the error one is all the details, etc. And then we are successful in our communication, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu has got to go there, say my words. You can, because of your humility. It's not about your ego trip. It's not about you. And therefore, you are the true vessel to reveal the truth and have an effect on the world successfully. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful Shabbos.